Does the God Emperor himself yet weep for what we have wrought? The ancient query is scratched into obsidian monoliths on a world that has not seen the sun in 10 millennia. Terminus, a bastion lost to myth, whispers its secrets only to those who dare linger beneath its shivering towers. Here, in the echoing halls of the Decree, the Imperium's longest-kept truths ferment, waiting to unravel the minds of the faithful. Battlefields, long cold, still hum with the dissonance of fallen angels, demonic laughter, and the whispers of primarchs long turned to legend. Each edict, each scrawled mandate, pulses with forbidden's authority, a litany of control and damnation, binding the living and the dead. The Terminus Decree was never merely law. It was a prophecy, a covenant with the universe's cruelest logic, promising salvation while harboring annihilation. To read is to court revelation and madness alike. The first page of the Decree speaks of stars that bleed and worlds that vanish beneath silent, unyielding judgment. Entire fleets of mankind's finest warships were once swallowed whole, yet the records of these purges remain obscured, their details erased with surgical precision. It is said the Decree was forged in the shadows of the dark age of technology, an era when men and machines spoke with a single voice, and the universe trembled beneath their collective arrogance. Yet even the most exalted tech priests cannot fully decipher its syntax. The words shift subtly when observed too closely, as if the text itself were sentient, testing the minds of those who dare to comprehend. Those who linger too long report hearing a voice beneath the ink, a cadence that promises dominion but delivers the hollow echo of mortality. In this silence, the faithful begin to question the very fabric of the Emperor's design. Within the fortified sanctum of Terminus, murals depict the servitude of gods to men, yet these images bleed into horror upon closer inspection. Figures that once embodied purity now contort into grotesque parodies of divinity, their faces melted in the anguish of unknown sins. Chroniclers note that the Decree commands obedience not only in life but beyond, ensnaring souls to eternal cycles of penance. Whispers claim the text outlines the fates of entire legions, some condemned to endless wars that no star can witness. Priests chant prayers beneath the gaze of mechanical idols, yet fear taints their devotion. They sense a silent intelligence in the Decree, a force that measures piety and casts aside the unworthy. Even the Adeptus Mechanicus murmurs that fragments of Forbidden's cogitators hint at patterns too vast for comprehension. A cosmic calculus binding the Emperor's will to inevitabilities the galaxy has not yet learned to resist. Legions of custodes once stood guard over Terminus, their golden armor reflecting the light of a dying sun. Yet not one survived to recount the events of the first reading of the Decree. What slaughter befell them remains unknown, hidden behind the protective veils of imperial secrecy. Still, traces of their final stand linger. Scorched corridors, shattered temples, and crypts where whispers of devotion are etched in the blood of heroes. The Decree commands more than mere obedience. It demands transformation, an elevation of mind and flesh into something other, something alien yet holy. Those who fail are removed from history itself, their erasure absolute. Pilgrims claim the walls themselves record these disappearances, shifting to hide what once was, as if Terminus itself acts as a guardian and executioner. In its silent judgment, the galaxy's most steadfast warriors falter, and the echoes of their defiance feed the Decree's growing sentience. In the shadowed libraries, ancient tomes vibrate as though alive, reacting to the presence of mortals who dare seek Forbidden's knowledge. Each volume intersects with the Terminus Decree in impossible geometries of cause and effect, revealing wars within wars, conspiracies older than the Emperor's first edict. Some texts hint at an orchestrated collapse of entire sectors, purposed to test the resilience of humanity itself. Yet, even as scholars trace these arcs of destruction, a deeper pattern emerges, one suggesting a hand beyond comprehension, steering not merely the Imperium but the very currents of time. These are not idle musings. The margins are filled with annotations of those driven mad by glimpses of the truth. Here, Faith teeters on a blade's edge. Devotion cannot reconcile the enormity of the decree, and doubt becomes a contagion. And yet, the galaxy moves forward, blind to the whispering designs of a document older than the stars. The Adepta Sororitas recount visions of martyrdom in which the Terminus decree commands both life and death, orchestrating salvation through suffering. Each passage, they claim, outlines obligations unthinkable to the pious, acts of heresy disguised as piety, obedience twisted into sacrifice, and loyalty redirected toward enigmatic ends. Prophets murmur of a coming reckoning, a time when the decree's full power will manifest and challenge the Emperor's light itself. Even the Inquisition falters at its revelation, uncertain whether intervention would prevent catastrophe or simply accelerate it. Across the galaxy, systems unknowingly follow a script authored in forgotten centuries, their rulers marionettes in a theater whose playwright is beyond mortal reckoning. The faithful, however, cling desperately to ritual and dogma, unaware that each act of devotion may merely be a tick in the machinery of inevitable subjugation. The decree watches, its mandate both silent and absolute, as history drifts toward a precipice none can foresee. Beyond the veils of starlit cathedrals, the remnants of the Dark Ages machine cult still linger, guardians of knowledge too perilous for ordinary comprehension. Within their forges, arcane engines hum, inscribing fragments of the Terminus decree into metallic tablets that resonate with an almost sacred dissonance. These devices record not only words but memories of battles never fought and deaths never witnessed, creating a tapestry where history and prophecy are inseparable. Tech priests who attempt to translate these relics find their minds splintering, visions of eons collapsing into one another in violent clarity. Whispers persist that the decree encodes instructions for unlocking a power capable of rewriting the very laws of existence, yet to act upon it may invite a horror the galaxy has never known. In the quiet of these forges, one can almost hear the sigh of creation itself, disturbed and unsteady beneath the weight of an age-old secret. The ecclesiarchy, unflinching in its faith, has long debated the implications of the Terminus decree. Sermons preached across hundreds of worlds speak of devotion as the only bulwark against inevitable ruin. Yet, even within these hallowed halls, doubt festers. Some confess to hearing faint murmurs within the stone, as though the decree itself speaks in tongues older than mankind. Entire chapters of Battle Brothers have vanished after consulting its guidance, leaving only echoes and whispered warnings. Pilgrims returning from Terminus describe landscapes both alien and familiar, crumbling temples of impossible scale, skies fractured by unnameable energies, and the lingering scent of a death that transcends the corporeal. In these visions, the faithful recognize the duality of the decree. It is a path to salvation, yet also a key to unthinkable despair. Each revelation raises new questions, none with answers, only the persistent hum of inevitable judgment. In isolated sectors, rogue psychers report dreams of cities folding upon themselves, as if the stars themselves obey the decree's silent command. Images of war stretch across dimensions, simultaneous yet non-linear, suggesting a calculus of conflict beyond mortal reckoning. The psychers speak in trembling tones of entities lurking within these visions, observing and guiding, entities that appear neither wholly divine nor entirely demonic. Their warnings, often dismissed as delirium, match fragmentary entries within the decree itself. Scholars attempting to reconcile these prophecies with historical record find contradictions so severe that entire archives are quarantined, their contents deemed too dangerous for interpretation. Yet the decree persists, indifferent to understanding, existing only to assert its will. Those who come too close feel time and causality fray at the edges, a subtle reminder that some knowledge is not a blessing but an omen. The galaxy spins, oblivious to the pattern slowly tightening around its destiny. Even within the Inquisition, discussions of the decree are whispered, recorded in ciphers that vanish when exposed to the light. Operatives report that entire fleets, previously loyal to the Emperor, have deviated from orders in perfect accordance with the decree's hidden logic. Some suggest Terminus itself is not a world, but a living nexus, a focal point where reality bends to the edict's silent will. Agents who attempt intervention often disappear without trace, leaving behind only cryptic communiques and artifacts whose function is unknowable. These vanishings sow paranoia, as Inquisitors suspect allies as often as enemies. In the cold corridors of power, dread replaces certainty. The decree's reach is infinite, and comprehension is irrelevant. The galaxy's most stalwart servants are left to question whether they enforce the Emperor's will, or merely enact the designs of a script older than divinity. Each passing cycle deepens the silence that surrounds the true nature of Terminus. Reports from the fringe worlds describe phenomena impossible to reconcile with science. Skies that bleed light, forests that whisper the names of lost souls, and rivers of mercury flowing uphill. Those who study these omens note that all occurrences align with cryptic directives within the Terminus decree, as though the galaxy itself were a living manuscript. Entire cultures vanish or transform, obeying laws inscribed millennia ago. Yet their peoples do so with devotion and conviction, unaware of the strings that bind them. Some historians argue the decree is a mechanism of ultimate control, a testament to the hubris of the Dark Age, while others insist it is a divine instrument, a conduit of the Emperor's unfathomable plan. As starships navigate the void, sensors intermittently record impossible readings. Echoes of battles fought across time, entities glimpsed only in the periphery of perception, and a persistent hum that suggests Terminus is both nowhere and everywhere. Legends speak of a final judgment encoded within the decree, a reckoning whose nature no living soul has survived to describe. Priests and tech priests alike claim that those who decipher too much are drawn into visions of the cosmos as a living entity, watching and shaping fate with impartial cruelty. It is suggested that the decree is self-aware, evolving to meet the needs of its own design, and that each revelation is merely a precursor to a catastrophe still unfolding. As fleets muster in forgotten sectors, the signs of its influence become undeniable. Stars flare without cause, entire populations shift their allegiance in unison, and whispered premonitions haunt every planetary governor. The galaxy holds its breath, unknowing whether Terminus is a savior or executioner. And yet, the final line of the decree remains obscured, its true purpose eluding even the most gifted minds, leaving the cosmos on the cusp of an awakening it may never survive. Pilgrims and heretics alike speak of a moment when the decree will no longer be hidden, when Terminus itself will rise as a fulcrum of destiny. Yet none can describe what this emergence entails. Some fear it signals the unraveling of reality itself, while others whisper of ascension beyond the material plane. Cryptic warnings embedded in its text suggest a rupture in fate, a fissure where causality may break and the laws of the universe bow before a new order. Across light years, observatories record anomalies that defy all comprehension, yet the Imperium, ensnared in bureaucracy and dogma, notices little. Scholars argue in endless circles, psychers tremble before visions they cannot fully recall, and warriors continue to fight battles whose outcomes are preordained. As the decree's influence spreads, one truth crystallizes: Terminus is watching, waiting, and what it anticipates may leave the galaxy changed forever, though the nature of that change remains unspoken. The smoke of endless fire drifts over the shattered spires of a world once called sacred, now hollowed beneath the weight of forgotten devotion. Soldiers kneel among ruins, their armor dented by time and disillusionment, while prayers, once fervent, tumble from trembling lips into a void that answers with silence. The whispers of long-dead primarchs mingle with the shadows of betrayed allies, forming a chorus of accusation that chills the bone. Within the cathedrals, candles gutter in the stale air, casting half-light over murals depicting victories, rewritten to conceal the sins of those who commanded them. Faith here is a brittle shell. Beneath it, doubt spreads like rot, unseen but inexorable. Priests argue in hushed tones over interpretations of sacred edicts, aware that misstep could summon ruin. The world itself seems to mourn, groaning beneath the tread of the faithful, while a distant, unfeeling intelligence watches, recording every tremor of loyalty and every faltering heartbeat of hope. Beyond the ruined temples, the battlefields lie littered with relics of ambition and despair. Broken banners flutter, their colors faded, yet they still speak of oaths and fealty. Survivors speak in fragmented tones of atrocities committed in the Emperor's name. Deeds that once seemed righteous now stained with the ink of doubt. Veterans recount visions of enemies indistinguishable from allies, as if war itself had rewritten the faces of loyalty. Political shadows deepen across the sectors. Governors who profess piety while orchestrating massacres. Inquisitors whose verdicts serve ambition more than truth. Soldiers find themselves questioning the integrity of their commanders, the meaning of their vows, and the promises of a god emperor whose gaze feels distant and indifferent. The decree whispers in margins of forbidden tomes, its language shaping thought even when unread, reminding all that obedience can be both salvation and execution. Each revelation fractures certainty, leaving the faithful to wander amid the ruins of belief, clutching at remnants of a faith that may never have been whole. In the silence between conflicts, whispers of heresy curl through the corridors of power. High priests confer in secret, their words cautious, their expressions taut with fear. Some speak of doctrines contradicted by events, miracles whose explanations defy scripture, and relics that bear witness to impossible acts. Within these shadows, the seeds of dissent grow, nourished by doubt and fear. Servitors shuffle endlessly, bearing messages that contain instructions impossible to obey without sin. A single misread edict can shift the balance between loyalty and damnation. Warbringers and generals alike find themselves caught between devotion and pragmatism, while the broken faithful begin to murmur questions that tremble with forbidden thought. Even the machine cults hesitate, sensing the subtle shift of inevitabilities they cannot calculate. And yet, no voice can speak the truth aloud. Every confession is swallowed by the shadows, leaving only the echo of treachery, a portent of fractures yet to rend the fragile unity of belief. Amidst the smoldering cities, psychers tremble as visions intrude without warning. Entire histories fold in upon themselves. Empires rise and fall, battles replay with altered outcomes, and forgotten saints bleed into martyrs yet unborn. These glimpses suggest a world dictated not by faith alone, but by forces unseen, manipulating devotion like clay. Officers report entire regiments vanishing or turning upon their comrades without explanation, as if the very concept of loyalty is being rewritten. Even the most stalwart warriors question whether their actions are their own or the fulfillment of an ancient and silent design. Priests inscribe protective wards, yet the wards tremble under the strain of unseen truths. In whispered confessions, soldiers admit to feelings of compulsion, as if invisible hands guide their weapons. Each vision leaves a residue of unease, a certainty that the boundaries between righteousness and sin, obedience and treachery, are far more malleable than any mortal mind can endure. The political machinery of the Imperium strains beneath its own weight. Governors enforce decrees that contradict one another. Bishops contradict doctrinal interpretations, and inquisitors claim authority over law itself. Alliances shift in silence. Betrayal no longer carries the clarity of action, but lurks in hesitation, in overlooked orders, in the subtle redirection of resources. Armies march, sometimes to defend, sometimes to annihilate, their intent uncertain even to themselves. Councils convene over cryptic prophecies, debating truths that may never be verified. Inquisitors whisper of agents acting on behalf of causes unknown, while clerics uncover relics whose inscriptions seem to mock comprehension. Soldiers and priests alike begin to see that loyalty can be weaponized, devotion can be exploited, and the edicts of the Emperor can conceal as much as they reveal. In this environment, every act of faith is a gamble, and the very concept of righteousness teeters on the precipice. threatened by both knowledge and the shadows in which betrayal grows. The Adepta Sororitas march silently through hollowed cities, their power armor echoing in streets lined with broken statues of saints. Their faith burns bright, yet even they sense the rot beneath the surface, a subtle corruption, not of flesh but of purpose. Chaplains murmur warnings of commandments misinterpreted and liturgies inverted. Some warriors report visions of their own actions committing acts they have no memory of ordering. These signs unsettle the sisters, for their devotion has never wavered, yet they cannot reconcile the dissonance between intent and outcome. Across the sectors, whispers speak of high-ranking officials who deliberately manipulate faith to consolidate power, erasing truths that might clarify the decree, leaving chaos to fill the void. The Sororitas begin to see that heroism can be a mask for complicity, that sanctity can harbor heresy, and that their own loyalty may be exploited as a weapon against those they have sworn to protect. Within the sanctum of psychers and scholars, the decree hums softly, as if aware of their efforts to comprehend it. Data slates, archaic tomes, and cogitators attempt translation, but the knowledge resists comprehension, revealing only fragments that suggest universes nested within universes, wars that are both past and future, and loyalties impossible to maintain. The scholars feel a subtle compulsion, as if guided by a hand outside time itself, pressing them toward interpretations that serve neither morality nor reason. Hallways creak beneath the weight of history, and the very air seems charged with silent accusation. Even when the faithful attempt to reconcile these revelations with doctrine, anomalies persist. Regiments appear in reports that never existed, saints whose martyrdom contradicts known history, and visions of betrayal that cannot be traced. Here, in the heart of study, knowledge itself becomes an agent of uncertainty, destabilizing faith in ways both subtle and catastrophic. The Inquisition convenes in secret chambers, illuminated by faintly burning wards and the quiet hum of machinery. The Lord Inquisitors debate revelations that cannot be shared beyond their conclave, for to speak openly would unravel the fragile order of hundreds of worlds. Evidence of heresy, previously unthinkable, is pieced together. Agents, bureaucrats, and even holy officials who appear loyal are implicated in subtle schemes of deception. The council grows divided, for interpretations themselves are tainted by the decree's insidious logic. Accusations linger in the air like poisoned incense, each statement a potential spark of civil war. Even the most confident among them tremble, understanding that certainty is no longer attainable. Outside the chamber, the galaxy continues its course, unaware of the fissure forming at its heart, the slow fracture of faith and order that threatens to expose truths the universe is not yet ready to bear. Across the void, fleets drift like spectral predators. Orders shift mid-flight, officers disobey or improvise according to calculations no mortal mind can understand. Entire sectors vanish from communications, as though erased by a subtle hand orchestrating reality itself. Warriors report glimpses of figures commanding entire systems, yet these beings are absent from all records, defying recognition and logic. The hum of void engines becomes a metronome for an unseen design, each pulse resonating with the quiet inevitability of destiny manipulated. Pilots and navigators experience dissonance in their instruments, readings that contradict every law of physics known to the Imperium. Some whisper of fleets caught between existence and oblivion, caught in cycles that neither begin nor end. In these silent intervals, the boundaries between loyalty and betrayal blur further, and the decree's unseen hand guides events with patient, inexorable cruelty, preparing the stage for revelations that will shatter every assumption of righteousness and obedience. In devastated hive cities, the broken faithful cling to fragments of scripture, murmuring prayers against the encroaching void of doubt. They witness miracles twisted into portents of disaster, obedience rewarded with calamity. Confessions reveal that entire chapters have acted against explicit orders, yet claim to serve the emperor, as if the decree itself is testing the elasticity of devotion. Political agents infiltrate every stratum, manipulating belief, redirecting zeal, and converting loyalty into currency for unseen ends. Even within the lowest servitor barracks, whispers of subversion persist, unnoticed but pervasive. Soldiers and priests alike begin to question whether their acts of faith are genuine or merely echoes of a cosmic script. In this lattice of uncertainty, righteousness becomes a measure of endurance, and loyalty a weapon wielded against those it claims to protect. The atmosphere thickens with tension as unseen betrayals multiply, leaving the faithful stranded on a precipice where certainty has been dissolved. Amid the ruins of ancient fortresses, clandestine rituals unfold. Sorcerers of the sanctioned kind mingle with whispers of rogue elements, seeking knowledge forbidden yet tantalizing. The decree's influence pulses through the atmosphere, and even the most disciplined minds falter under its subtle compulsion. Priests report visions of the Emperor observing, not with mercy, but with calculation, evaluating obedience as though it were currency to be spent at a cosmic tribunal. Secret alliances form and dissolve in the shadows, each maneuver twisting faith into a tool of manipulation. Soldiers and leaders begin to doubt not only each other, but the very foundation of their purpose. Then, as the tension peaks, a revelation occurs. A codex, long considered sacred, reveals a hidden truth so profound that it undermines the legitimacy of the entire hierarchy. Eyes widen, hands tremble, and the first seeds of widespread heresy are planted in hearts that thought themselves unwavering. The galaxy teeters on the brink of understanding what should never have been known. A signal, faint and garbled, reaches the farthest worlds. It carries a message in a code older than humanity, decoded by the most gifted, only to reveal a betrayal long concealed. Armies once loyal falter mid-campaign. Governors vanish or issue orders contrary to prior mandates, and priests of the highest rank are discovered collaborating with factions whose existence was previously denied. The revelation fractures certainty, infecting belief with a rot that spreads faster than any heresy fought with bolter or blade. Across the sectors, faithful begin to question the Emperor's omniscience itself, while psychers report impossible visions, worlds being rewritten, deaths undone, and sins reallocated to those who never committed them. In this silence, a single horrifying conclusion emerges. Loyalty is no longer reliable, righteousness is mutable, and the decree is more than a law, it is a living architect of betrayal. The galaxy, for the first time, realizes it may have been a pawn in a conspiracy older than the stars themselves. The void stretches interminable, broken by the dim pulse of dying stars, each flicker a reminder of impermanence. Soldiers kneel upon hollow decks, gazing into engines that burn without warmth, praying to a distant emperor whose silence is suffocating. Memories of lost comrades, entire regiments consumed by orders they never questioned, haunt them like ghosts with names forgotten. A single candle wavers in the chapel, its flame trembling in sync with the hearts of the faithful. Faith is no longer certainty, but a fragile act of defiance, each whisper of devotion a dagger against despair. Outside, the galaxy continues its unknowing march toward ruin. Fleets vanish, systems collapse, and the decree hums with quiet intelligence. The walls of the citadel seem to breathe, recording thoughts, intentions, sins, and confessions. Within this oppressive silence, every heartbeat feels like both rebellion and surrender, and the line between the two grows ever thinner. Across the shattered worlds, the instruments of war speak in dissonance. Bolters misfire, sensors record impossible readings, and astropathic communications bend under the weight of unseen hands. Officers tremble as orders shift beneath their fingers, loyalty contorting into compliance with some hidden design. Among the faithful, murmurs grow into a tide of suspicion. Allies may be enemies, doctrines may conceal treachery, and obedience may mask complicity in horrors too vast to name. Chaplains record confessions with ink that smudges of its own accord, as if the words themselves resist permanence. Psychers glimpse visions of past campaigns rewritten, victories inverted, deaths reassigned, and entire legions condemned to disappearances erased from history. Amid these distortions, belief becomes both solace and trap. The faithful are forced to confront a staggering truth. The galaxy is not a stage of chance, but a theater of inexorable design, where the architects of fate remain unseen, and the consequences of revelation are beyond reckoning. In the depths of hive cities, shadows creep along shattered streets. Pilgrims mutter prayers that morph into doubts mid-intonation, and statues of saints appear to weep silently. Mercenaries report seeing comrades act with inexplicable malice or mercy, as if guided by a consciousness beyond human understanding. Beneath these streets, hidden archives contain fragments of texts older than the Emperor, inscribed in scripts that resist translation, yet burn with undeniable authority. Scholars and priests alike feel the weight of centuries pressing upon their minds, compelling thoughts and fears they do not recognize as their own. The line between devotion and heresy blurs as each revelation challenges memory, doctrine, and perception. Across this decayed metropolis, the hum of unseen engines suggests a deliberate orchestration, as if Terminus itself, or something older, is recalibrating the behavior of every being. Faith here is a battlefield of the mind, and even the most stalwart hearts tremble under the pressure of truths unspoken. Upon the deck of a void cruiser, the officers convene in whispered councils. Navigators report spatial anomalies where time loops upon itself, entire star systems echoing events already long concluded. The crew whispers of voices in the machinery, subtle suggestions that guide actions before thought arises. One captain confesses in trembling tones that orders he issued may have been preordained by the decree itself, that his decisions were not his own but pieces in a design older than humanity. Pilots sense the stars themselves shifting, constellations that flicker in impossible sequences. Even the most loyal warriors begin to doubt the integrity of their own senses, their perceptions manipulated by forces beyond comprehension. A single psychic pulse radiates through the ship, and every mind feels the weight of history and destiny compressed into one unbearable instant. In this crucible of silence and revelation, certainty dies quietly, leaving only terror and the whisper of an inevitable truth still hidden in the darkness. The ecclesiarchy convenes in clandestine chambers, high above the smoldering hive worlds. Cardinals argue not over doctrine, but over the implications of events that contradict every scripture. Reports arrive of entire regiments vanishing mid-march, only to reappear weeks later as shadows of themselves, their memories rewritten, their faith unrecognizable. The decree hums faintly beneath stone floors, recorded in inscriptions so subtle that only those trained in forbidden symbology can perceive them. Scholars discover passages suggesting that obedience itself may be a form of control, an instrument to bend loyalty to an intelligence outside mortal reckoning. Confessions indicate acts committed in the name of the Emperor that served hidden ends, and doubts proliferate faster than certainty can spread. Even the most fervent priests feel an unease in their prayers, an intuitive understanding that the universe they serve is not bound by morality, but by logic older and more ruthless than divinity. Shadows deepen, and the line between righteous action and cosmic manipulation dissolves entirely. On a war-torn battlefield, survivors huddle in the wreckage of destroyed fortresses. Each corpse is a testament to obedience misdirected, each ruin a monument to decisions that may have been predestined. Veterans speak in fragmented tones of impossible visions, allies enacting betrayals they could not conceive, enemies acting with strategies that seem orchestrated by a hidden hand. Psychers tremble as psychic echoes replay moments from battles never fought, while sensory distortions warp sound and light around them. Commanders fear that every order they give may already have been subverted by forces beyond comprehension. Even the most disciplined soldiers begin to perceive an intelligence weaving events, assigning guilt and virtue with impartial cruelty. The air carries the residue of these manipulations, faint whispers, shifting shadows, and a sense of inevitability that chills the soul. In this crucible of war and doubt, belief is no longer a shield, but a mirror reflecting the fragility of the human mind. Within the labyrinthine corridors of Terminus itself, the archives awaken. Ancient machinery hums, their cogitations tracing patterns across the galaxy in ways unseen by human eyes. Scholars observe inscriptions that change subtly with each reading, revealing strategies, betrayals, and destinies rewritten. Some fragments suggest that entire histories of the Imperium have been curated, edited, or erased to conceal a reality that would fracture faith if known. The text is alive, a sentinel and arbiter of obedience, testing the resilience of those who dare comprehend it. Within these halls, individuals report sensations of being watched by forces older than stars, feeling judgment not only for acts committed, but for thoughts considered. Every revelation is both illumination and condemnation. The line between understanding and complicity dissolves, leaving observers unmoored, aware that even their loyalty may be co-opted. In Terminus, the decree's presence is a palpable weight, shaping reality while concealing the ultimate consequence of its knowledge. Across fractured sectors, fleets drift like phantom predators, responding to invisible commands. Officers report systems appearing and vanishing, communications that encode truths too dangerous to speak aloud. Pilots glimpse impossible figures on sensor arrays, beings whose presence is recorded, but whose essence is incomprehensible. Even the most disciplined regiments experience inexplicable hesitancy or uncharacteristic aggression, guided by unseen currents of fate. Across worlds, the faithful murmur of loyalty strained beyond endurance, while priests and psychers sense threads of causality bending toward unknown designs. The galaxy feels the weight of unseen architecture, a plan older than humanity, a manipulation of devotion and action that renders obedience meaningless. Every decision appears both consequential and inconsequential simultaneously. Whispers speak of an ultimate revelation carved into the bones of creation itself, a truth capable of unmaking empires or elevating them to impossible heights. And as the void swallows stars whole, even the most devout begin to wonder whether the Emperor himself is part of this design or merely its pawn. In the depths of the Mechanicus forges, arcane engines pulse with unnatural rhythm. Servitors inscribe runes and schematics that hint at a synthesis of machine logic and cosmic prophecy. Scholars discover that the decree can alter probability, not merely instruct action, bending outcome and loyalty alike. Reports from distant worlds suggest coordinated events that could not occur naturally, rebellions suppressed before they start, fleets vanishing and reappearing at precise coordinates, and psychers compelled divisions reinforcing obedience to designs unknown. High-ranking tech priests speculate on the presence of a latent intelligence embedded in the decree, a conscious architect directing both human and machine. Entire cathedrals hum in resonance with these revelations, as though amplifying comprehension beyond mortal endurance. Those who witness this awakening feel both awe and terror, recognizing that the tools of creation themselves have become instruments of revelation and subjugation. The galaxy teeters, poised between understanding and annihilation, and the final pattern remains obscured just beyond perception. Among the surviving sororitas, doubt becomes tangible. Rituals fail to bring clarity, hymns fall silent mid-intonation, and visions once comforting twist into warnings. Novices cry out in terror at apparitions of themselves committing acts of unthinkable betrayal, a reflection of the decree's manipulation of perception. Chaplains record these occurrences, only to find their logs altered upon review, the ink shifting as though alive. Across battlefields and sanctums, loyalty is weaponized. Obedience may enact destruction as readily as salvation. Even the most devout sisters find their prayers directed toward outcomes they cannot fully grasp. The boundaries of sin and righteousness collapse, leaving devotion as a fragile interface between comprehension and madness. Whispered prophecies speak of a moment when understanding the decree will transform the faithful, reshaping their perception of loyalty, purpose, and divinity itself. The galaxy waits, suspended, as anticipation and dread fuse into one unbearable certainty. In isolated psyker enclaves, visions intensify. Entire histories unfold in a single instant. Empires rise and fall, legions vanish, betrayals cascade across centuries, all meticulously orchestrated by a force beyond mortal reckoning. Some psychers report witnessing the creation of the decree itself, etched into reality by an entity older than stars. Each revelation corrodes the notion of agency, suggesting that even the Emperor's will is subsumed beneath this design. Communication arrays transmit fragmented, impossible instructions, leaving navigators and officers uncertain whether their decisions are theirs or the reflection of inevitability. Even faith itself feels compromised, as if obedience was never a choice, but a mechanism to fulfill a purpose hidden from all living eyes. As the revelations crescendo, the faithful experience collective vertigo, an existential nausea as comprehension strains against the mind's limits. The universe quivers, poised at the edge of a disclosure capable of rewriting history and destiny simultaneously. The final archives of Terminus reveal a truth encoded not in language, but in the geometry of space-time itself. Observers perceive the decree as a lattice of cause and effect, manipulating both matter and belief, past and future. Within this lattice lies a singular revelation. The galaxy itself was designed as an experiment, a crucible in which faith, obedience, and ambition are measured and recalibrated across millennia. Empires, saints, and heroes are both players and instruments in a cosmic calculation whose architect remains hidden, its motives inscrutable. Psychers feel the lattice penetrate their minds, visions of their own decisions folded back upon themselves. Priests collapse in despair, unable to reconcile devotion with manipulation. Warriors shudder as loyalty is revealed to be a variable, not a constant. The realization spreads like a silent contagion. Everything believed, everything fought for, may have been orchestrated by a force older and colder than divinity itself, waiting to unveil its ultimate conclusion. Amid the ashes of a world scorched by endless war, a psychic pulse radiates across the void, illuminating the lattice of the decree. Light bends impossibly, showing histories that never occurred. Lives unled, betrayals unpunished, and victories undone. Observers feel the edges of their consciousness fracture under the revelation. Faith is an equation, obedience a variable, morality an artifact. Priests and warriors alike perceive themselves as instruments of a design that transcends the Emperor, the Imperium, and even the concept of free will. In the heart of this revelation, a single immutable truth emerges. The galaxy is neither guided nor abandoned, it is calculated. And then, as comprehension reaches its apex, the lattice shifts once more, revealing a new variable, a presence unknown, a force capable of altering the decree itself. The universe shudders at the hint of its intervention, and every certainty held for 10,000 years is poised to fracture forever. The void trembles as fleets converge upon worlds scoured by centuries of devotion and deceit. Pilots grip controls with white-knuckled certainty, though doubt coils like a serpent within their minds. Every starship carries the echoes of decisions never truly their own, orders that may serve destiny or damnation in equal measure. Across shattered sectors, artillery fires signal not only assault but judgment, each salvo a meditation on obedience and sacrifice. Soldiers kneel in ruined cathedrals, counting sins in silence, while psychers sense currents of inevitability rippling through the warp. Even the highest-ranking priests whisper prayers that tremble with guilt for acts they did not choose. Shadows stretch long across battlefields and councils alike, swallowing certainty and nurturing fear. Loyalty is no longer a shield but a chain, each link forged in doubt. And somewhere, deep within the lattice of the decree, a pattern shifts, waiting for a moment that may never be survived. In the high halls of Imperium governors clutch relics as if their weight could anchor sanity. Doctrines contradict one another in ink now trembling on the page. Advisors whisper of betrayals that span centuries, of fleets that obeyed orders yet defied comprehension. The echoes of ancient oaths rebound against stone walls, a litany of obedience and broken promises. Courtiers move with measured caution, knowing even a glance may betray allegiance. From distant Vox channels, reports trickle in of entire legions vanishing mid-battle, their existence rewritten in real time by an unseen architect. Scholars trace these events through fragmented data slates, only to find the instruments themselves distorted, histories folding in upon themselves. Faith falters in the corridors of power, replaced by grim calculation. Every choice made, every prayer uttered, reshapes the galaxy as inexorably as the void bends light. Somewhere in these shadows, the lattice of the decree pulses, anticipating the hour when all threads converge. On scarred battlefields, veterans move like ghosts, their armor pitted and scorched. Each step carries memory. Each breath recalls comrades swallowed by choices imposed, not made. The decree's invisible hand twists events into patterns of obedience and betrayal, testing the resilience of every soul. Chaplains record confessions in trembling ink that seems to shift mid-scripture, preserving sins both committed and imagined. Heavy silence precedes each roar of bolter fire, each orbital strike, a calm pregnant with unspoken judgment. Psychers writhe as visions collide, past and future mingling in impossible geometries. Even loyal soldiers begin to sense the futility of action. The universe's weight presses down, bending intention and faith alike. Every death resonates beyond the corporeal. Every act of heroism is shadowed by doubt. The battlefield itself seems aware, a living testament to the cost of devotion and the fragility of purpose. And in this tense stillness, the first tremors of a revelation stir. Amid the hives, faith flickers like dying flames. Pilgrims kneel in alleys where statues weep rust and ash, murmuring prayers whose answers are swallowed by the void. Entire neighborhoods bear the imprint of loyalty and betrayal, bricks inscribed with subtle distortions that chroniclers cannot decipher. Soldiers patrol streets where allegiance is indistinct, and the murmured guidance of the decree seems to echo from walls themselves. Chapels collapse under the weight of uncertainty, yet still the faithful march, driven by instinct and obligation. The air carries tension, suffocating yet alive, vibrating with currents of choices made in ignorance and obedience imposed by unseen hands. Even the most devout warriors sense that each step may lead her to salvation or ruin. Shadows lengthen unnaturally across courtyards, distorting perception. Each whispered confession resonates beyond hearing, shaping outcomes in ways unnoticed. Somewhere in this labyrinthine city, a revelation waits, poised to fracture faith irrevocably. Within the sanctums of the Adeptus Mechanicus, cogitators hum with subtle malice. Schematics of starships and artillery shift without explanation, altering outcomes before the first bolt is fired. Tech priests record deviations in expectation, only to find each correction compounded by further distortion. The lattice of the decree pulses invisibly, manipulating both machine and human alike. Servitors carry out instructions written centuries ago, now revealing new consequences unforeseen even by their makers. Archmagos cry out as visions of past and future battles overlay one another, each iteration a test of obedience and understanding. Even the most rigid logic bends under the weight of inevitability. Entire systems pivot mid-operation, guided by the invisible pattern of the decree. Across the forges and foundries, silence hums with tension, a calm laced with the knowledge that revelation is near. And somewhere deep in the machinery, a variable shifts, signaling that the universe itself is preparing to strike. High above the planet, orbital bombardments hang poised, like the breath of gods held in suspension. Pilots grip controls with trembling resolve, sensors strained by readings that cannot exist. On the surface, infantry feel the press of inevitability, each step on scorched earth carrying the weight of millennia of obedience. Psychers sense the universe bending subtly, stars quivering, light warping as if the cosmos itself anticipates what is to come. Confessions are whispered into the wind. Oaths, broken and maintained alike, weave a tapestry of guilt and resolve. Even commanders who once believed themselves autonomous feel the tug of an invisible hand, each order aligning with a plan older than the Imperium. Silence stretches over the battlefield as if the void itself waits. And in this pregnant pause, the galaxy holds its breath, teetering on the cusp of truths that may shatter every assumption of loyalty and destiny. In ruined cathedrals, the last vestiges of faith burn low. Priests tremble before relics whose meaning has warped over centuries, sensing that devotion itself may have been a weapon calibrated by unseen minds. Soldiers kneel among ashes, their armor reflecting a dying sun, counting sins committed under the banner of righteousness. Psychers shudder as visions of betrayals yet to occur mingle with memories of those already inflicted. Even the highest clergy sense that the decree has manipulated every outcome, rewriting the very concept of piety. Outside, fleets align for final strikes, unknowable to the human eye, yet moving with precise orchestration. Every prayer, every act of obedience, reshapes the galaxy as inexorably as time itself. Silence is broken by the distant rumble of engines and the faint, almost imperceptible pulse of psychic resonance. In this hour, faith and doubt are indistinguishable, and the universe trembles, waiting to reveal its ultimate judgment. Among the remnants of ancient legions, veterans share tales that fracture memory itself. Stories of heroism, betrayal, and loyalty twist and reform, leaving soldiers uncertain which are truths and which echoes imposed by the lattice of the decree. Eyes twitch at shadows that seem to move with intention, and even the most disciplined feel the weight of inevitability pressing against their minds. Confessions of sins, committed knowingly or not, surface involuntarily, forming a chorus of accusation and grief. Battles erupt and cease almost simultaneously, as if history itself were replaying with alterations. Chaplains attempt guidance, only to discover their words misdirected, feeding outcomes they cannot predict. Across the galaxy, systems rearrange themselves in response to invisible commands, the consequences of obedience manifesting in unexpected destruction or salvation. In the midst of this psychic storm, every decision becomes both crucial and meaningless. Every act of faith both rebellion and surrender, the calm before revelation's storm. On distant worlds, orbital surveillance records anomalies impossible to reconcile. Entire cities vanish, leaving empty landscapes where devotion and industry once thrived. Satellites detect fleets performing maneuvers that defy natural law, reappearing in patterns suggesting conscious orchestration. Psychers report psychic echoes of unrecorded battles, voices whispering the names of those already dead. Soldiers experience déjà vu in moments of peril, recalling choices not yet made, actions not yet taken. Even the most steadfast commanders struggle to maintain authority, feeling the invisible hand of the decree guide their every movement. Across the sectors, faith falters, replaced by awe and terror. Chapels collapse under the pressure of unknowable truths, while the remaining loyal march toward objectives whose purposes are obscured. The universe braces in suspended tension, the lattice pulsing faintly, calculating the precise moment to reveal consequences that will reshape existence itself. Every heartbeat on these worlds carries the resonance of destiny. The Adepta Sororitas brace for assault in a world of ruins. Bolters and flamers hiss in eerie synchronization, as if anticipating movements dictated by invisible hands. Novices cry silently, unable to reconcile their training with visions of betrayals and manipulated victories. Chaplains clutch relics that tremble under psychic resonance, their prayers reverberating in unison with distant fleets. Every soldier senses that their obedience may serve hidden ends, that their loyalty may be rewritten in real time by the lattice of the decree. Outside, orbital bombardments begin to cast long shadows, preparing the canvas for revelation. Psychers writhe as psychic currents overlay past, present, and future, creating visions of outcomes both horrifying and impossible. Silence alternates with bursts of destructive clarity, the universe itself trembling at the brink. The faithful march onward, their conviction mingled with terror, unaware that the ultimate truth is poised to strike, rewriting the galaxy's destiny in an instant. Amid council chambers, priests and inquisitors argue over interpretations that no longer seem sufficient. Messages arrive from the field, fleets behave with uncanny coordination, and the lattice's influence manifests across every sector simultaneously. Even the most devout admit that every action, prayer, and edict may have been part of an experiment spanning millennia. Arguments collapse into silence as the weight of revelation presses on every mind. Across space, signals of psychic resonance intensify, aligning like invisible strings along the decree's lattice. Soldiers on distant battlefields glance skyward, sensing that fate itself is converging. Chaplains tremble, scribes falter, and psychers collapse beneath visions that threaten to break their consciousness. The galaxy braces collectively, held in suspended anticipation. Across the void, the decree pulses in subtle cadence, orchestrating consequences on a scale no mortal eye can track. And at the edge of perception, a single variable shifts, poised to reveal a truth capable of redefining all existence. In the silent expanse of space, light bends unnaturally around fleets poised for engagement. Navigators strain against impossible readings, feeling the tug of inevitability on their minds. Soldiers sense the universe watching, each heartbeat resonating across cosmic lattice beyond comprehension. Psychers perceive a pattern of loyalty, obedience, and sin converging on a single moment, a nexus where revelation will fracture understanding. High-ranking commanders recognize the futility of intervention, even as orders are executed with precision beyond mortal comprehension. On distant worlds, prayers echo into the void unanswered, relics tremble, and cathedrals groan under the psychic pressure of accumulated doubt. The lattice of the decree hums faintly, anticipating the fulcrum of consequence. Every soul in motion, every fleet in orbit, every act of faith prepares the galaxy for a moment that will shatter certainty. The calm deepens, suffocating, pregnant with the approach of a revelation that none may survive. In orbit above a dying sun, the first strike aligns perfectly with centuries of unseen orchestration. Pilots grip controls with white-knuckled terror, psychers shudder, and warriors brace for impacts preordained by the lattice of the decree. Silence stretches across the battlefield like a held breath, punctuated only by distant signals from fleets performing impossible maneuvers. Shadows of the past intertwine with visions of futures unmade, each soldier sensing the weight of every choice ever made. Priests whisper prayers that may already have failed, chaplains tremble before relics vibrating with unseen energy. As ordnance arcs toward the surface, the lattice pulses in synchronization with the psychic hum of the galaxy itself. Even the Emperor's distant gaze cannot alter the inevitability now unfolding. Every loyal heart senses the final convergence approaching, the storm before revelation breaking. And at the cusp of this cosmic orchestration, a variable shifts, ready to unveil a truth that will rend belief, loyalty, and history itself. The void shudders as fleets collide, engines screaming through warped space. Bolters fire in staccato bursts, a chorus of fury and precision, while psychers convulse beneath the weight of cosmic resonance. Stars flicker as if blinking in fear. Soldiers charge across battlefields scarred with centuries of devotion and betrayal, every footstep a meditation on sacrifice. Chaplains cry prayers into the roaring wind, their voices merging with the screams of the dying. Oaths break like glass beneath the pressure of impossible choice. In moments of clarity, each soul glimpses the lattice of the decree, a vast architecture of predestination manipulating every act. The Emperor's distant gaze feels present, weighing yet impotent. Even devotion cannot withstand the orchestration of forces older than humanity. And amidst the chaos, a single revelation emerges, searing and luminous, reshaping understanding of loyalty, sin, and destiny. with the brilliance of a dying sun. On the surface of a shattered world, orbital fire rains down in golden arcs, tearing stone and flesh alike. Veterans collapse amid debris, clutching relics that burn with latent energy. Each explosion echoes with the memory of sins unatoned, every cry a lament for choices imposed. Psychers writhe in anguish, visions of past and future merging into unbearable simultaneity. Even the most steadfast warriors falter, seeing their comrades acting against them in reflection of impossible patterns. Chaplains raise banners above the carnage, the cloth shredded, the symbols distorted as if mocking devotion. The decree hums faintly beneath the surface, a living intelligence bending the battlefield. Orders are both obeyed and subverted simultaneously. And then, in a heartbeat, the lattice pulses with clarity, exposing truths that fracture certainty. Loyalty is variable, obedience is mutable, and the cosmos itself is a crucible for sacrifice beyond reckoning. High above, Psychers extend their wills across the void, touching threads of destiny with trembling minds. Streams of energy collide in blinding torrents, fracturing shields and crushing thoughts alike. Warriors on distant battlefields feel unseen hands guiding their actions, compulsion indistinguishable from choice. Chaplains whisper confessions they cannot claim, knowing that even guilt is predetermined. In flashes, entire legions are annihilated, resurrected in memory, then obliterated again by the decree's invisible calculus. Pilots report constellations trembling, sensors catching echoes of battles that never existed. Amidst this cosmic fury, whispers emerge. A presence older than the Emperor has intervened, manipulating faith, devotion, and intent simultaneously. Hearts falter, prayers twist into curses, and hope becomes an act of defiance without consequence. Even the lattice itself seems to pulse with uncertainty, adjusting the rules of engagement in real time. The battlefield becomes a crucible, distilling courage, guilt, and despair into a singular, unbroken wave of revelation. Amid the ruined sanctuaries, chaplains collapse beneath the psychic weight of revelation. Candles gutter, smoke curling into forms that echo lost memories. Soldiers clutch rosaries and bolters alike, feeling the futility of acts committed and not committed. Their minds fracture under visions of betrayal that are both past and yet to occur. Priests wail, voices intertwining with screams of the faithful on distant worlds. Oaths fail, yet devotion persists, a stubborn flame flickering against inevitability. The decree orchestrates every heartbeat, every hesitation, turning obedience into an instrument of revelation and despair. Psychers sense the presence behind the lattice, a hand unseen, shaping outcomes with divine precision. Even the Emperor's name seems inadequate to encompass the scale of orchestration now revealed. Silence punctuates explosions. In the chaos, a single psychic shockwave spreads across the galaxy, displacing reality in subtle, terrifying ways. And somewhere in the lattice, a secret waits to be disclosed, destined to shatter all remaining certainties. On scorched plains, warriors make their final charges. Bolters roar in rhythm with hearts, screams echoing across ruined terrain. Commanders falter, recognizing that their choices have been simultaneously compelled and foreseen. Psychers collapse mid-cast, visions of the decree's design ripping through consciousness. Priests throw themselves into the fray, relics ablaze, chanting liturgies that bend space and time with desperate fervor. Explosions shred both flesh and faith alike. Shadows of betrayal walk alongside loyalty, indistinguishable. Every act of heroism refracts into countless possible outcomes, each more terrible than the last. Amidst the fury, revelations pulse in fragments. Empires built on obedience, devotion weaponized, saints unknowingly instruments of predestination. Soldiers feel history pressing upon them, the weight of millennia compressing choices into impossible simultaneity. And just as a final impact strikes, a psychic crescendo erupts, rippling across systems and opening a fracture in understanding that will leave the galaxy forever unmoored, trembling on the edge of revelation and despair. In the cathedrals of shattered hives, survivors stumble through rubble, carrying bodies and relics alike. Bolts of psychic energy arc through broken stained glass, illuminating faces frozen in grief and awe. Even among the faithful, despair becomes tangible, a cloak that presses upon hearts and minds. Chaplains murmur prayers that twist into confessions of unknowable sins. Psychers perceive the lattice's full orchestration. Loyalty, devotion, betrayal, and fate intertwined in a pattern impossible to resist. Shadows of legions, both real and unreal, march across visions, their actions predestined yet unknowable. Pilots and officers sense the hand of a force older than stars, guiding the collapse of structures and alliances alike. Every explosion, every fallen soldier, resonates across systems as if the galaxy itself shudders in recognition of truth. And beneath the surface of all events, the decree pulses with a quiet, inexorable certainty. All outcomes, even survival, have been measured and accounted for. Amid orbital stations, alarms ring without cause, sensors detecting impossible movement and yet confirming reality. Pilots find themselves executing maneuvers they did not choose. Chaplains clutch holy symbols that vibrate with psychic resonance. Psychers scream as temporal and causal flows intertwine, histories overlaying one another in fractal patterns. Commanders realize that every order given has been anticipated, every act of obedience measured for outcome and consequence. Shadows of betrayal appear in moments of courage. Acts of devotion coincide with acts of destruction. The void hums with awareness, a consciousness older than the Emperor, shaping both lives and death. Even the lattice quivers, sensing the ultimate variable approaching, one that will redefine the boundaries of faith and purpose. Soldiers brace, eyes wide, hearts hammering. The galaxy holds its breath as the final alignment of forces coalesces, and a single unprecedented revelation waits at the edge of perception, poised to strike. On battlefield moons, silence falls like ash. Pilots hover, engines idling, bolters cold. Warriors kneel, hands clutching relics and remains, eyes lifted to alien constellations trembling with unseen orchestration. Psychers weep, visions overlaying centuries, revealing betrayals and loyalty in the same breath. Chaplains murmur last rites for acts yet to be committed. Shadows of legions flicker across the terrain, both tangible and spectral, echoing choices predestined. The decree hums through the void, a lattice of inevitability guiding every action. Even the Emperor's distant presence seems unable to intervene fully. Silence stretches, pregnant with cosmic tension, broken only by the faint pulse of psychic energy weaving through space. Every observer senses the approaching fulcrum, the moment where sacrifice, revelation, and destiny will converge. The galaxy waits, trembling, as the final pattern aligns, ready to fracture history itself and reveal truths that may never be reconciled with faith or memory. Amid ruined citadels, veterans and clergy alike confront the consequences of obedience. Every fallen comrade becomes a testament to both faith and manipulation. Pilots report impossible trajectories. Psychers collapse under visions of outcomes, both lived and unexperienced. Soldiers clutch relics, praying for choices they do not understand. Chaplains whisper confessions, acknowledging sins foreseen and committed under invisible compulsion. The decree pulses, a lattice threading through mind and matter, orchestrating every act of courage and despair. Shadows lengthen unnaturally, echoing across continents. Explosions both occur and do not occur, time folding into itself. Even the most devoted feel the weight of predestination, crushing intuition and instinct. And in the silence that follows each psychic tremor, a single revelation gleams. All devotion, all obedience, all betrayal has been measured, calculated, and orchestrated, leading to an outcome only the lattice fully comprehends. The galaxy hangs on the cusp of understanding its ultimate design, poised for the final act. High in orbit, command stations flicker under psychic resonance. Navigators shiver as sensors report simultaneous existences, fleets that exist and do not, commands obeyed and contradicted. Officers grasp controls, hands shaking, as if the lattice manipulates not only space, but their very intent. Psychers convulse, visions of legions annihilated and resurrected in impossible permutations consuming consciousness. Chaplains pray aloud, voices tremulous, as oaths fracture under the weight of revelation. Shadows of the dead flicker across monitors, their actions both present and absent. The decree hums with intelligence, orchestrating events on a scale that defies comprehension. Even the Emperor's distant gaze cannot pierce the lattice's logic. Silence and fury intertwine, moments of calm punctuated by psychic blasts and psychic screams. Across the galaxy, every heartbeat, every prayer, every act of obedience converges, preparing the final revelation whose immensity dwarfs comprehension and whose consequences will be eternal. On the scarred surface of Terminus, soldiers prepare the last stand. Bolters are loaded, flamers ignited, swords lifted toward impossible futures. Every footstep is weighted with memory, guilt, and devotion. Psychers tremble as the lattice of the decree threads through their thoughts, revealing outcomes both horrifying and preordained. Chaplains murmur confessions, eyes wide with awe and fear. Pilots above orbiting stations tense, knowing the final moment of convergence approaches. Shadows of betrayal and loyalty intertwine, indistinguishable in the dying light of the system's star. Explosions tear the terrain, echoing with psychic resonance across sectors. Oaths are broken, remade, and fractured anew, reverberating with cosmic significance. And at the apex of this tension, a single pulse spreads across space, an immutable revelation poised to strike. The galaxy teeters, caught between comprehension and annihilation, while the lattice hums with the awareness that something eternal has shifted, though its full meaning remains unspoken. In the aftermath, silence drapes the galaxy like a tomb shroud. Ash drifts through shattered streets and void-bound fleets alike. Survivors kneel amid ruins, eyes wide, hands trembling over bolters and relics. Psychers whisper fragments of visions, aware that time itself is fractured. Chaplains record confessions that cannot fully encompass sins and revelations. Shadows of legions linger, spectral echoes of decisions made and unmade. The decree hums faintly, a subtle resonance threading through space and mind, as if assessing consequences and preparing for futures yet uncalculated. Even the Emperor's distant gaze seems heavier, contemplative, constrained. Across sectors, silence stretches, holding the weight of sacrifice, revelation, and cosmic orchestration. The lattice has shifted. Faith, loyalty, and destiny bear the mark of a new architecture. And somewhere, beyond perception, the ultimate truth waits, eternal, unspoken, reshaping the galaxy's path, while leaving mortals to reckon with the tremor of their choices and the hollow echo of a universe forever altered. The galaxy exhales, a long trembling sigh that passes through shattered stars and scorched planets. Fleets drift like ghosts in voids that remember battles no one can recount. On broken worlds, ruins of fortresses and cathedrals smolder in the dying light. Banners hang torn, flapping faintly in winds that carry the scent of ash and remembrance. Soldiers kneel among corpses, their eyes hollow, their hands empty. The decree no longer pulses, but its influence lingers, a shadow on thought, faith, and memory. Psychers whisper fragments of visions, faint, incomprehensible, like echoes of a dream long past. Chaplains murmur prayers for acts no one can verify, their voices soft and quivering. Silence stretches across ruined sectors, punctuated only by the distant drift of debris. The universe seems to hold its breath, waiting for nothing, acknowledging only that time endures while empires fall and gods remain silent. In ruined hives, candles gutter in drafty corridors, their faint flames reflecting against cracked walls etched with prayers. Pilgrims stumble through ashes, carrying relics whose purpose is lost to memory. The air smells of incense and decay, and even the most devout seem weary of devotion itself. Echoes of screams linger in alleys where battle once raged, now silent but present. Psychers trace the lattice of the decree in fading impressions, each pattern dissolving like sand slipping through a hand. Across the hive, statues lean as though bowed under the weight of unseen grief. Banners hang limp, inscribed with oaths impossible to fulfill. Voices murmur questions with no answers, and even the Emperor's distant gaze seems to falter. The faithful carry memories heavier than armor, their steps slow, deliberate, echoing across the hollowed remnants of cities once alive. And somewhere in the silence, the faint whisper of eternity stirs among the ruins. Across battlefields, scorched earth tells tales of choices and sacrifices etched into dust and stone. Bolters lie discarded beside shattered armor, their mechanisms cold and silent. The bones of warriors, once proud and resolute, rest alongside relics whose significance has faded into legend. Chaplains kneel, tracing the outlines of shattered sigils with trembling fingers, murmuring prayers for deeds that no one can confirm. Shadows of legions drift faintly, the echo of movements long erased from time. Psychers sense residual currents of the decree, faint pulses threading through the fabric of space, as though the universe itself remembers the orchestration of fate. Even stars seem dimmed, their light hesitant, casting long melancholy shadows across plains that will never bloom again. Silence dominates, yet within it is a memory of violence, courage, and devotion. And somewhere, the question hangs: is endurance itself a triumph, or merely the final obligation imposed by forces unseen and unyielding? In the vastness of orbit, derelict fleets float like monuments to inevitability. Their hulls bear scorch marks from engagements that shape destinies beyond comprehension. Pilots' quarters lie abandoned, personal logs half complete, echoing faintly with the thoughts of those who lived and died according to the lattice's invisible will. Psychers drift in meditative stasis, sensing histories overlaying one another, lives and decisions folding upon themselves. The decree is silent, yet its architecture lingers, a subtle resonance felt in metal and mind alike. Bridges of command sit empty, controls cold, screens dark, a monument to the fragility of authority. Even the vacuum seems to mourn, carrying whispers of names and deeds across sectors bereft of life. And in this silence, one question persists: was loyalty ever choice, or only the reflection of a design beyond understanding? The galaxy exhales again, slower this time, as if remembering the weight of all that has been lost and all that endures. On worlds smoldering beneath dying suns, cathedrals sag beneath their own weight. Stained glass is fractured, light spilling in jagged shards onto stone floors littered with ash and bone. Priests kneel, voices hoarse from prayers that have long gone unanswered. Soldiers shuffle through the remains, carrying weapons heavy with memory. Psychers reach toward echoes of past battles, sensing threads of action and consequence tangled beyond comprehension. Silence dominates, yet it is not empty. It vibrates with the ghosts of devotion and betrayal. Banners hang limp, torn by fire and wind, inscriptions unreadable but still honored. Outside, winds carry faint prayers to nothing, across ruins of entire civilizations. Somewhere beyond perception, the lattice of the decree lingers, observing, subtle, indifferent. And in this quiet, a gentle uncertainty arises. What is faith when gods remain silent? When survival itself demands the endurance of impossible truths? And when memory bears the heaviest weight of all? Among shattered archives, scribes and chroniclers trace the remnants of deeds long past. Scrolls crumble beneath fingers calloused by devotion. Ancient tomes hum faintly with residual psychic resonance, as if remembering acts both noble and terrible. Psychers whisper fragments of knowledge no mortal mind can hold in full. Chaplains kneel, murmuring prayers that echo in corridors now devoid of worshippers. Candles gutter, shadows flicker, and every movement carries the weight of centuries. Walls seem to lean toward those who remain, listening for confessions never spoken aloud. Even the stars above cast uncertain light, as if hesitant to illuminate the scars below. Questions hang unanswered, What is the price of endurance? And is devotion itself sufficient recompense for all that has been endured? The air is thick with memory and ash, and in the trembling silence, the faintest of whispers reaches through the void, seeking witness to the fading chronicles of the galaxy. Across ruined hives, survivors drift through echoes of their own histories. Steps falter over debris, hands clutching relics whose meaning is lost, yet not forgotten. Pilgrims kneel amid ruins, counting sins no one can validate. Shadows move without light, stirred by faint memories of orders obeyed and betrayals endured. Psychers trace threads of the decree, only to find that the lattice itself has gone quiet, leaving empty impressions of infinite orchestration. Cathedrals sag beneath the weight of memory, banners limp, sigils fractured, relics dulled. Chaplains whisper last rites to walls and ashes, voices trembling with grief and reverence. Even silence carries the memory of sound, bolter fire, screams, and psionic resonance, a ghostly echo of what was. And in this solemn stillness, the question remains, does survival honor those who fell, or does it merely prolong the inevitable reckoning that all will face in the end? On the surface of dead worlds, the wind stirs dust through streets that once thrummed with devotion. Broken statues lean, cracked faces frozen in lamentation. Soldiers' armor lies abandoned, weapons rusting, each item a memory and a question unspoken. Chaplains trace sigils with trembling hands, murmuring prayers that have no recipient. Psychers see shadows of decisions imposed by unseen hands, threads of obedience and sin intertwined. Even the stars seem distant, dimmed by centuries of sacrifice and cosmic orchestration. Cathedrals are hollowed husks, echoes of chants mingling with the sigh of wind through broken arches. Banners droop in the stillness, faded and silent. And in this desolation, the question lingers. When the lattice has ceased its design, when gods have withdrawn, and when faith falters, what does endurance truly signify? The universe listens but offers no reply, leaving only memory and the quiet weight of continued existence. Among drifting fleets, derelict vessels hum with the memory of lives once present. Engines idle, consoles dark, and the faintest vibrations trace patterns of decisions made long ago. Pilots' cabins hold journals half-written, a record of loyalty and courage now silent. Psychers meditate, recalling fleeting impressions of acts predestined and remembered. The lattice no longer pulses, yet its shadow remains, subtle and eternal. Chaplains kneel upon cold decks, relics pressed to lips, whispering prayers whose purpose has faded into legend. Even stars seem diminished, their light hesitant over worlds scarred by obedience and betrayal. Across sectors, silence flows like a tide, washing over fleets, battlefields, and cathedrals alike. And in this quiet, a final question drifts. Is memory itself salvation, or only the echo of deeds forever lost? Dust swirls through corridors and void alike, a reminder of what endures, and what has been irrevocably consumed by time. In shattered archives, remaining scribes trace fragments of histories too vast to record fully. Scrolls crumble, ink smears with age, and yet the act of remembrance persists. Chaplains kneel beside them, hands trembling over relics dulled by centuries of devotion. Psychers whisper of threads long unraveled, visions of sacrifices too complex for mortal minds. Shadows of legions and fleets haunt the halls like echoes of decisions made under the decree. Candles gutter, their flames reflecting fractured sigils and banners hanging limp. Silence dominates, carrying the memory of devotion, despair, and survival. Outside, winds sweep dust through ruined cities, carrying echoes of unanswered questions. And in this quiet reflection, one thought lingers. In a universe where all deeds are weighed and all choices orchestrated, what becomes of those who survive? Are they triumphant or simply witnesses to the indifference of eternity? The halls sigh with memory, leaving only echoes. Across dying planets, twilight casts long shadows over battlefields, cathedrals, and abandoned citadels. Pilgrims kneel in dust, hands extended toward relics and stars alike. Psychers sense faint currents of the lattice, now subtle and near forgotten, weaving through memory alone. Soldiers gather in silence, their eyes reflecting centuries of loss, devotion, and impossible duty. Chaplains murmur prayers into the wind, voices trembling yet steady in the solemn stillness. Banners hang limp, torn and faded, sigils unrecognizable but revered. Even the cosmos seems muted, a gallery of faint light and distant echoes. Questions drift through the air like ash. What is faith without answer? What is endurance without recognition? The universe listens yet offers none. Across all, silence prevails, punctuated only by the remembrance of choices and deeds now eternal in memory. And somewhere faintly, the whisper of eternity seems to ask the living to bear witness still. In the hushed remains of fleets and fortresses, the last echoes of devotion settle like dust. Chaplains kneel over relics, prayers whispered into void and wind alike. Soldiers drift amid ruins, hands empty, eyes hollow, hearts heavy. Psychers trace faint impressions of battles, betrayals, and loyalty, threads now dissipating across time. Cathedrals sag, banners hang motionless, and silence presses against walls and corridors. Even stars seem hesitant, faintly glowing as though uncertain if their light should touch the scarred worlds below. Shadows of legions linger, faint echoes of obedience and sacrifice now memory alone. And in this quiet, the question remains unresolved. When the orchestration of fate ends, when gods are silent, and when devotion has been weighed against eternity, what meaning remains? Dust drifts through shattered halls and hollow fleets, carrying memory and silence alike. Stand witness, for the echoes are yours to bear. Like, subscribe, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments.